Hi everybody, welcome to episode 16 of Satellite 664. I'm one of your two co-hosts, Kaz Tagyan, and as always I'm joined by Mr. Steve Loopy Newhouse. Happy Sunday to you, mate.
Sunday. It's the same as every other day. During this lockdown, every day becomes the same.
Is it?
Yeah. I just meant to tilt my camera back a little bit because above my head, you might just be able to make out my big Eddie Air Force One.
Oh, is that the 7? That's a 747, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you look over that side, that's my little version that I got from Steve Lass.
Oh wow. I'm looking for the 757, the one they used in 2008, 2009. It's really hard to come by, even as a little die-cast model. So
Collectors.
yeah, so if anyone has one, reach out. But so Loopy, today we're actually you're gonna is one of those unique episodes where you are actually going to wear two hats tonight. You're going to wear the co-host hat, but also you're going to be an interviewee of sorts because we're going to go back in time and talk about the Killers album and the Killers era, which you were quite very heavily involved with.
Yeah.
This will be a nice, interesting conversation about Killers 1981. Now, released in February 1981, hit a UK chart position of 12, following the debut album's chart position of 4, which really wasn't all that big a difference, really. Some very good reviews from supporters of the band, like Malcolm Dome, and
Jeff Barton.
Jeff Barton, of course.
I'm not saying it's a one-man crusade, but he was one of those people that made Maiden popular. Should I say popular? I think that's the right word.
Yeah, most definitely. And also too, it heralded the recording debut, or the Maiden recording debut of Adrian Smith. It was his first album that he played on.
And Martin Birch at the helm.
Yes, and you know the history will say that the band wanted Martin for the first album, but they sort of thought that if they asked him, he wouldn't accept. When in actual fact, Martin Birch would have loved to accept. But
he actually turned around afterwards and said, "Well, you didn't ask."
What's that? Now, what's that saying you've got about asking?
Yeah, don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly. It's a life lesson.
I live by it.
What's a life lesson that you've actually taught me? You don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, exactly. we could all learn something from that.
Yes.
But don't go asking me for passes because you ain't gonna get.
Yes. So Adrian's band Urchin had basically broken up, and he was sort of killing time in a little London outfit called the Broadway Brats, and they'd wanted Adrian for a while. He sort of said no because Urchin was doing quite well. He had big visions for Urchin at the time, but this time he did accept the band's invitation to play with them. Interestingly, though, one interesting historical footnote is that had Adrian have declined, the band's plan was to actually ask Phil Collen, who obviously later played with Def Leppard, to join them.
Phil was an old schoolmate of all of us because he went to the same school as myself, Deano Harris. I think he was a year younger than me, so he would have been in the same year as Deano. But the story actually is that when Steve asked him if he was interested, he said to Steve that it was the wrong style of music and he wasn't interested in joining at all. So,
which makes sense because he was in a glam band called Girl,
but before that he was in a band called Dumb Blondes, with the guy I used to go to school with. Like a different school in a different area, which is just bizarre.
Yeah, and he ended up in a band which obviously went on to achieve enormous success in Def Leppard, but
Mm.
Def Leppard's real sort of huge success was actually built on more light rock, that sort of teenage sort of bubble rock that Hysteria was. Great album, but it is quite very, very different to what Iron Maiden were and continue to be.
The style of Leopard suits him so much better than Maiden would.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Loopy Battery Studios is where Killers was recorded. Could you, for the real, because we love minutiae on this shows, we're Maiden
Aficionados.
geeks. Tell us the dates, mate.
Right, basically, Battery Studios was back then called Morgan Studios. Battery Studios, it changed its name to Battery Studios in about 1984 when it was taken over by a little company called Zomba, which of course is Iron Maiden's publishing company. See the link. Anyway, so yeah, the studio, if you Google the studio now, Battery Studios, which is now called Assault and Battery, the site of that studio is not where the original Morgan Studios was. Morgan Studios was actually in Litchfield Road in Wilson, literally two roads away from where the studio is now. It was quite small, double doors in the centre, a little sort of parking area at the front, double doors in the centre, where you literally take your gear straight into the double doors, into the studio itself. There was another entrance down the side, which was the band recording. That was your way in. That was your main entrance. So yeah, you took your gear into the main entrance, and it was one big room. So everything was in there. They used to have a grand piano. How they got that in there? Who knows? Hammond organ. But of course, that was also covered up and pushed to one side of the studio. With these big sort of huge, so I would say like 4 by 4 foot, huge, thick pieces of like reflective wood, I would have thought. So just to stop any of the vibration from the keyboards or whatever sort of getting back into the room. So that was all sort of sectioned off. So yeah, we went into the studio, we set up the gear. The gear actually went into the studio. It was on the 30th of October. So once you've actually sort of set everything up, you start miking everything up. They were probably ready to go. I would have thought maybe the 1st or 2nd of November, once they've actually sort of got the sound levels and everything else. Which also, it's the first time that they recorded with Martin Birch. And I never actually got round to asking what they felt the difference was between Martin and Will Malone. Obviously, you got a professional do it this time, but
and Martin Birch's nickname was the Headmaster, which he was quite a rigid taskmaster and really pushed the band. And that applies throughout subsequent recordings in other years as well.
Wasn't there a photo of Martin somewhere, like dressed up like a headmaster, like a complete like with a cane?
There is.
Yeah, I thought so.
There is.
I remember it.
And there was a polar difference with the producer of the first album, who was quite nonchalant and had very much a lackadaisical attitude towards the band and the album, which we're going to get into, and obviously when we cover that era. But Martin Birch was obviously more proactive and a lot more professional and really pushed the band, and you can see the result.
A lot more evolved.
Yeah, and you can see the result. I mean, sonically, when you drop the needle on Killers, it is just vastly superior in its production and its sound, and its clarity to the first album. So, and for me anyway, more of an enjoyable listen. Now, album cover. Album cover is an interesting one where we've got that sort of fiendish Eddie in Manor Park with a sort of like a bloodied axe. Legend has it that the idea for that cover came from Dave Lights.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I didn't know that. I just thought it was Derek sort of continuing the theme, if you like. Um, but I also thought that the first album cover was done using the lamppost in Endymion Road or wherever it was, Finsbury Park. I thought that the Killers was exactly the same place, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
Well, it's meant to be. I mean, it's still in that part of the East End. Really
Well, I
where
don't know. I mean, Finsbury Park is North London. I mean, it's actually very close to the Arsenal football ground, and we don't talk about it because we're EastEnders.
so so basically to put the chronology right is the band came off the Kiss tour opening for Kiss in Europe in October 1980. Basically went back home, set up went into the studio, set up the gear.
No, before that, that was where um, the departure and arrival started. They basically we got back. I think it was around about. It's got to be about 15th or 16th of October. We got back from the Kiss tour, and sometime between then and going to the studio, we actually did a video for Women in Uniform,
Yes.
which was recorded at the Rainbow Theatre, and that was when Dennis noticed that the cameras were
Mm.
not focusing on him. It's almost like the cameraman had been told, get rid of him, so don't even bother. And there's a lot of photos of and these were actually promotional photos that I recently sold, but there were a couple there where you don't see Dennis's face at all. One's got
Wow.
Steve's headstock across his face, and another one where Dave and Dennis are together. Dennis has got his head down, you can't actually see his face. It could be anybody. It could have been Pete Willis from Def Leppard, the hair and everything. It could have been absolutely anybody. But what made me laugh was, these are official promotional photos. Why block somebody out? Was the writing on the wall? Of course, being not part of the crew, we didn't know. We just went in, we set the gear up. After the video shoot, we take it down, we move on. And by the time we actually started setting up the gear in the studio on October 30th, Dennis was gone and Adrian was coming in. And we hadn't been told. I think I got a phone call from Dave Light saying that Dennis had been fired, or Dennis had left. Because he didn't get fired, it was basically an amicable thing. They weren't happy with him, he wasn't happy about being told what he had to do, and all the rest of it. And so Den just went. And of course, Adrian came straight in, having been asked several times. But yeah, it was a bit of a transition. But it was also something that Dave Murray had wanted right from the start.
What was your first impressions meeting Adrian?
Well, we knew him anyway. So we used to go and see Urchin,
Oh, okay.
especially at the pub in North London called the Brecknock. In fact, we did the Brecknock once, and then we went back to do it a second time. And the gardener turned around and said, "No, you can't bring your own lighting in, boys, because we've got our own lighting." And Steve Harris went, "No, we ain't playing here then." And we actually stayed outside the pub. So the people that were turning up to see us, we told them to go away because we weren't doing it. The pub manager lost a lot of money that night.
That's crazy.
So yeah, going back to the story is, yeah, I mean we knew Adrian quite well. In fact, we actually got to know all the band. We knew Andy Burnett.
Mm.
Can't remember the last time I saw Andy. I'm friends with him on Facebook, but I haven't seen him for probably 30 years at least.
Wow.
But yeah, we got on with all the guys.
So Gear goes in October. So Kiss tour finishes. Gear goes in October 30th.
Yeah.
Take me through what happened after that.
Well, again, so it takes a couple of days to get everything set up. So imagine everything's mic'd up, everything's ready to go, and then I've actually got a few notes written down here that we took the gear out again on the 20th of November because we did a small tour from 21st of November to the 2nd of December. That's literally just to break Adrian in. But Imagine, okay, right, the levels on the sound desk don't change. That's all been set. They won't be touched. Nobody else is going in. The studio is ours. But all the microphones have got to be moved. It's for our gear to be taken out. And especially the drum kit, when you've got everything mic'd up. All the tom-toms, glider, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tom-toms that had to be mic'd up, snare drum, bass, all your cymbals, hi-hat. All those microphones had to be moved out of the way. So I could break the kit down, pack it away, get it on the truck, off on tour. Then when you come back, kit's got to be set up again. And we went back into the studio on November 3rd. And as I said, now all the microphones have now got to go back into place exactly where they were, just to keep their sound the same. And that wasn't the first time. We took the gear out again, December the 18th, because we did a show at the Rainbow, did 2 shows at the Marquee.
Yeah.
Then we took it back in again on the 22nd of December, but we finally took all the gear out on the 9th of January, having had a Christmas break between the 23rd of December and the 3rd of January. But yeah, each time you take the gear out, so all the mics are going to be moved out of the way. They're not packed away, they're literally just moved to the side. But then they've got to go back in the exact same place as they were. And being a perfectionist at Clive was, oh, that's in me way. I can't see the light, because that was, it's sort of, okay, mate. But there was a few little bits and pieces going on in there. I mean, the old adage about the 666 thing sort of playing up during recording was just absolutely crap.
That was Number of the Beast, mate.
Well, basically, if it did start there, or the album was called Number of the Beast, the actual starting of all that was supposed to start during the Killers album.
Oh, wow.
Where those silly little things kept going wrong, spooky. It's all bollocks. I mean, one problem we have is that they did a run through the Purgatory, and Martin Birch could hear this noise, and for the life of me, couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And it turned out that there was a small rattle coming from the snare drum. Now, so it's okay, let you go and change both skins, put a new snare on bottom, yeah, no problem. Go in, do that, change it all around, it's still there. And it hadn't done it before, and it didn't do it after. But it's like, what the fuck? So, the only solution was for me to actually lay on the floor, in amongst all the mic stands, the snare stands, the hi-hat stand, and trying to be wary of Clive's leg, because I don't know if you know, but whenever Clive was going for it, if you can find live videos of Killers, 1981, or even before that, in tour in 1980, if Clive had a really sort of hard part to do with his right foot on the pedal, on the bass pedal, his left leg used to come right up in the air, literally, probably level with his chest. I mean, it really used to come up. And so I'm trying to stay out of the way of his leg, but my job was to literally put a finger on the snare to stop it from rattling. And it was like, it was hard work. I came out of there afterwards, and it was literally done. The first take was where we discovered the problem. The second take was me laying down, just holding this thing for sort of 3.5 minutes, about that. And I had to lay totally still because I couldn't make a sound because the mic would pick it up. So when they finally went, all clear, and cross to that. Now I've got to get out without knocking anything because it's all been sound. So I finally get out and I've got marks and bruises where I've been laying on these stands and I ached all over. To the point where I think it was done just before lunchtime, was in Iron Maiden terms, lunchtime is around about 6 p.m. so we went to, me and Pete Bryant went and found a pub And we just sat there for a couple of hours and then went back and well, the band carried on. But yeah, there was that. And for those that have actually seen our Facebook page, I've got a little
Ah,
teaser, you see.
the button,
Uh,
the button.
yeah. What does
Now,
this button do? It basically is what did that button do?
now the button is actually in a reference to your involvement in my favourite song off the album,
Hmm.
Prodigal Son. Now, what on earth was your involvement during that?
Well, um, the song had been recorded, like the backing track had been recorded, and it was down to Adrian to do his solo. And Martin Birch had an idea, and he wanted to use a certain effect that Nigel Green had set up. But basically, the effects rack was quite away from where Martin was sitting at his desk. He wanted to control what was going on, like the levels of the solo, like mixed in with the backing track. And the only other person in the studio was me. So Martin pointed to this button and he said, right, he said, when I give the nod or when I say go, I want you to press that button. And when I say go again, I want you to press it again. So one turns it on, one turns it off.
Hmm.
And the actual bit that I had to do it when Marty said go, you'll find it at 3 minutes 25. In Prodigal Son, Adrian's guitar solo, and it goes off again at 3:31. And all it is just a nice little sort of wavy effect that just sort of added to the solo at the time, and it just added to something. But I was really proud to have been there to do that.
Yeah, so
Really,
so that would be if we divide that solo into four parts,
if you thought, yeah, so, yeah,
which it is,
saying the four parts is literally the second quarter.
second
So you
quarter
got
of it.
so you got the first quarter. Second quarter was the bit I did, and then Adrian finished it off with like the last half minute or whatever.
Now, Loopy, the other interesting track is or single was actually Twilight Zone, which again has a fabulous artwork there with a young Charlotte sitting in her bedroom and a transparent ghost-like Eddie is reaching out from yonder to reconnect with.
Charlotte doing a lippy.
Yes, and Eddie's reaching out to reconnect with his old flame. But before Eddie did all that, you actually had an involvement with Twilight Zone as well.
Well, not really. More the B side. It's more the B side. The B side. He could give you an idea how long we were actually in the studio. Although taking the gear in and out, probably about 3 weeks in total. But the final thing they recorded on the 8th of January was the B side, Drifter. That's what I was saying. That was, yeah, I mean, that was the last thing recorded, 8th of January 1981. And then we took the gear out the next day. And then I think it was all back to Hollywood Studios for a couple of days, and then off to Shepperton for rehearsals, and then we hit the road with Trust in support
Yeah, and
with Nico McBrain.
yes, and there's another sort of connection there. Um, and it was also a momentous time because Maiden actually headlined for the very first time on March 15th, Hammersmith Odeon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, mind blowing when you think about it. Only 2 years before, they were a little band doing the Ruskin Arms. It's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. Also with the Odeon, it was a place that every band wanted to play at, unless you were sort of like absolutely massive. And there weren't many massive bands back then. That sort of started kicking off around about, I would say, the early 80s. To like sort of early to mid 80s. I mean, the first thing I ever did there was in 1983 with some Indian chap called Amsam Bachchan. He was an Indian film star. And what they had to do was they had to sort of reinforce the stage by using steel. If anybody knows what it is, it's tube and clip steel. So basically, you've got steel tubes that are all clipped on and sort of clipped to everything to support the stage because they had live elephants walking up one side and down the other. So yeah, but that was like for me that was the sort of start of like, big shows at Wembley. But before that, everybody was doing Hammersmith Odeon because that was the place to be. And before us, the countless hundreds and hundreds of bands before us. And the only time we'd ever been there before was with Priest on their tour like a year before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool.
And then really it was the time when towards the end of that tour when the cracks were starting to appear with Paul Di'Anno and the rest of the band.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I wasn't there, so I didn't actually see for myself what was going on. But apparently, here in America, I mean, it'll back this up because it's out there. Everybody knows. But he got into a particular drug that was more like a downer. He started like slurring his speech. It's almost like being drunk. Um, but he got to the point where he was taking these tablets literally just before he was going on stage.
Gee.
And during the course of an hour and a half set, he was gradually getting worse and worse to the point where the crew were literally sort of carrying him off stage. And I think he got to the point where Steve being Steve went, "No, I can't keep doing this. He's got to go." And again, going right back to the very, very beginning when we were at Camden supporting Samson. And I do remember saying in my book that Steve and Dave and I were standing there watching Bruce Dickinson, Bruce as he was back then, sort of doing these barrel rolls and diving off the PA and all the rest of it. And you could see they were impressed. And that, to me, was like, when Steve gets something in his head, you know he's going to stay there until he actually gets what he wants. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, look, there is a group, like a subset of the fan base who obviously were into the band from the late 70s, who came on for the late 70s in that London scene and followed them through those early years, who say that the Di'Anno era is their favourite era and they love it. And again, timeline is very important because the time that you discover the band is probably the most special time for any given fan. So
but on the other hand, Kaz, quite simply, it works both ways as well. Yes, you had like your fans that have been there like from the start of Di'Anno. Yes, some of them were disappointed when Di'Anno left, but then
yeah,
you had new fans coming in with Bruce. It's the same as like when Bruce left, there were a lot of disappointed people,
yeah,
but then new people coming to watch plays.
yeah.
And it's a vicious circle.
That's right. Well, that was my generation. I mean, I discovered that when I discovered the band, Clive Burr was the drummer, Bruce Dickinson was the singer, and it took me a while to actually go back and listen to those early albums because they didn't quite resonate with me initially. It's only 2 or 3 years after that I went and listened to Kid.
I've got to admit, like listening to the Killers again the other day for the first time in at least over 2, 3 years. It was good to hear it again. Yeah, it is.
It's a fantastic album. It is a
So it's
really
also a
fantastic album.
special moment in my life because I was there. I actually came out. I mean, the day that we recorded the B side was the first time I actually got to hear the first side of the album all the way through, and I was blown away, absolutely blown away.
Look, it's a fantastic album, right from the Ides of March through to Murders in the Rue Morgue, and there's some great highlights. Another Life, Innocent Exile, obviously Killers. But I think Prodigal Son is a fantastic album. I really love some of
I
the
was thinking
mood.
that the Drifter actually became one of my favourite songs because that was they always used to do it right at the end of the set. I mean, just
Yeah,
before it was like one of the encores, and it became like a bit of a sing along.
mm,
With Steve and Clive would sort of slow it down a bit,
mm.
or slow it down, quieten it down a bit, and Deanna used to get the crowd like singing back, and then they'd finish up with it. Um, and especially on the Killers tour, in the UK, there were two birthdays, Steve and Clive both had their birthdays in March, and they both got done up like really badly. Quite. Um, what happened was the caterers found out it was Steve's birthday. Rather than bake him a cake, they saved all the leftovers from dinner, and they had this huge glass bowl, and all the trifle and leftover peas and the mash and everything else all went into this huge bowl, and there was spaghetti and there was all manner of stuff. And while Steve was at the front of the stage, the two caterers came out and poured this entire bowl over his head. No, I think that was in Birmingham. And a few days later, it was Clive's birthday, and we were in Glasgow. And I went out and I bought this can of snow spray. And Clive used to have this big fan, a big sort of 15-inch fan sort of blowing on him the whole time.
Mm.
But he had it rotating or semi-rotating. I switched the rotate off while it was actually blowing straight on him and just sprayed this snow into the fan, so it just blew over him. And then stupidly thought afterwards, shit, I've got to clear that up.
Oh.
But the guys appreciated it. They knew it was something was going to happen. And yeah,
of course, you'd have to. No, look, it's a fascinating era of the band. It really is a fascinating era of the band, and a
lot of fun.
Yeah, it's an important part of those early years. It really, when I look back, I mean, I look at that whole Killers era as sort of the end of one chapter, and that is, what I call the East End chapter. I mean, they were still very much a gritty band from the East End of London, and it was only a year later when they catapulted themselves into a band which really started to go into the realms of fantasy and mythology, and
also they were no longer classed as an East End band. They became a British band.
Interesting, yes, exactly, and those first two albums and Killers really give off that, really portray that very strongly. It is very much an album, and although the music is very much reminiscent from those streets of East London, whereas Number of the Beast is not. It's again, and Number of the Beast onwards, it becomes a totally different animal again. So. Yeah, fascinating time, fascinating era. Again, great. Anything else to add, sir?
I don't think so.
No?
No, just remind people that my book is still available only on eBay, but my son today is working on my website. So I might even have a website up in the next few days.
Fabulous.
But don't hold your breath. Just keep going to eBay for the moment.
Yeah, look, the really good thing about doing the show is we discuss a lot of these topics, and quite a few people it's sparked quite a few people, or it's sparked interest in quite a few people to go and actually discover your book, and that's a good thing, because it simply teaches a more broader cross section of people about those early days of the band, and that's.
Also, it's just remind the people that I'm not going to call them punters. I hate that. Let's call them viewers, because that's what they are.
They're viewers.
If you have any questions, either leave your comments down below, or leave them on the Satellite 664 page on Facebook.
Actually,
or just contact me directly on Facebook. I'm there.
One thing I'm interested in viewers leaving comments on this one is. Were you into the band around the Killers era, and did you see them at that time with Di'Anno?
Yeah, and where? Yeah.
And how did you feel when Paul Di'Anno was no longer in the band?
When I left Maiden in Japan in '81, I got fired because obviously like the troubles that I was having with Clive. We went to America for a week and spent the first couple of days in Seattle at a hotel called the Edgewater Inn, where it says on the side of the hotel, fish from your window. That's great, you can do that, unless your window overlooks the car park. Which, this is true. But you can literally drop a line out your window if you was on the right side of the hotel. We did a little bit of fishing there. I mean, I've got photos of Clive and Dave Lights, Paul Di'Anno even, like, sort of sitting there, like, just dropping a line over the side. Nobody ever caught anything. And it was bizarre. We went to a bar just along from there, and it's the first time I've ever been ID. I mean, all of us were 23 years old, 23 years of age. But luckily, we all had passports to prove that we could actually go and buy a beer. Because one looked at Dave Murray and went, "No, you're not old enough." And Dave went, "Passport." Yeah, it was bizarre. And after that, I mean, it was drinks all round. But
Can you fathom and process the fact that next year Killers is going to be 40 years old? 40 years
I
old.
mean, you think about, Iron Maiden's 40 years old this year. It is what it is.
Yeah, the debut album is 40 years old. Yeah, and
Yeah. But so going back to what I was going to say was like, after leaving Maiden in '81, and you've got Paul and Clive in there, and then when I rejoined the band in '83, it's Bruce and Nico that was taking over it, and to me, I think I think a lot of people will agree that it was a step up.
Oh, absolutely.
It was strange, yeah, but it was a step up, and it was a good step up. Yeah, it was huge.
Which has carried on until today. So that's it. That's our little sojourn, our foray into the Killers era, the 1981 era. Hope you enjoyed it. And as I said, if you were there, if you saw it, tell us about it. Tell us about it. I only know.
I'm going to add just one other bit.
Sure.
Which I've just remembered. I was saying about going to this hotel in Seattle. After that, we spent another few days at a place called the Sunset Marquee, which is just off of Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, where you got this pretty sort of square kind of hotel with a pool in the middle, and I got some great photos of people being thrown in the pool. Like Dave Murray, for instance. It's a sequence of photos that I'm going to have to put up sooner or later because these have never been seen. But it starts off with you've got Steve Harris in the pool, just looking over the edge. Next photo shows Steve and Dave Lights doing the same, just looking over the edge, and they're looking directly at Dave Murray, to the point where they both come out of the pool, grabbed old Dave fully clothed and threw him in. It turns out that Dave had about $200 in his pocket.
Oh no!
Yeah, cigarettes one side and cash in the other, and it all got soaked. But yeah, and on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah, and Dave Murray's got a lot more than $200 in his pocket these days. That's for sure.
I'm sure that got reimbursed, or maybe they tried it out behind his back, money laundering.
Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Look after yourselves, and
see ya, guys.
We'll see you for the next one. Take care.
Bye. Or see ya.